Okay, it's Sunday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. I've gone to Reddit ahead of time, the Overwatch University subreddit, and I've just skimmed a bunch of questions off the first few pages, and we're gonna answer those questions. Why have we got fighters footage playing in the background instead of Overwatch? What are you, a cop? Leave me alone, okay? And if you're curious which one's me, just look for whichever side started with Android 21. So first question we've got: how do I position myself as Ana on enclosed maps such as Oasis? And a lot of it kind of stays the same, it's just now you have a lot less space to work with. All the same things apply as previously. You want to still use as much cover as possible so the enemy just has less sightlines to you. All you really need as Ana is sightlines to your own team, because then you can heal them, obviously. Ideally, you can also see the enemy team so that you can fire back at them and everything, but you only really need to see your team so that you can heal them. So that can help. Try and play near cover, try and play around or like walls or shields, depending on if you have any, or they're willing to actually, you know, hold their shield up. You know how those Reinhardt players are. Also try and play around like health kits if you can, the other healer, things like that. All the same principles apply as previously, it's just you have less instances of being able to like hang out just really far away from people because you don't have that much space to work with. Also generally less high ground to work with as well on King of the Hill maps, but the same principles kind of apply, just don't expose yourselves to more lines of sight than you have to, and play near cover are like the biggest ones. So like if you're playing on like University on Oasis specifically, then you can just stay, like, behind the wall. Like, you got the big square in the middle and then the two gates going in. You could just stand off to one side of that wall, and then you can see your teammates. You can't see the enemy team, sure, but you can see your teammates, and that's all that matters. And then you can't really die. You can support your teammates, and then when your team starts pushing forward, you can move up to support them as well. Then you move into, like, the gateway rather than staying back around the gateway. You know, stuff like that, basically. All the same principles mostly hold true, you just got less options, kinda. So, next question is the reason climbing is hard because of micro-decisions? And this was a little bit ambiguous. That was the title of the thread. The TLDR read, can difficulty encountered when climbing be attributed to how you must make more second-by-second decisions as you climb higher in the ranks? And, yeah, basically that's why it's hard. There was something along those lines, last week, where there was a question that just read, like, what is wrong with me? And then the more in-depth version of that was, this guy. The more in-depth reason was basically, the person was super overwhelmed by all the things that they had to keep track of now that they were in, I think it was Platinum that person was in at the time, and they just found it to be a very overwhelming experience. And yeah, that's pretty much true. You have to start keeping track of more and more things as you climb up in the ranks, so it gets increasingly difficult to play the game and increasingly difficult to keep track of everything, especially when, like, something like positioning encompasses so many decisions that you have to make, and it's something you have to do all game long at the same time. It's very difficult. So yeah, and then, you know, if you think about it, it's like when you're in, like, bronze and silver, you have very little to think about, to be perfectly honest with you. All you really have to worry about is, like, what's the enemy team doing, and then you just play around off of that, right? And that's all you need to do. And then as time goes by, you slowly need to add more and more things on top of that. And it can be very jarring for people, especially if you... because you can end up getting to a high rank and having really bad habits by the time you get there, right? Because if you only really play around the enemy team and playing like bronze and silver, you just worry about, like, you making plays by yourself. By the time you get to, like, gold, and you have to actually worry about... he wants that grab so bad, Jesus. By the time you get to gold, you have to actually start playing around your teammates as well. And if you've gotten by up until that point, just playing around the enemy team and not worrying about what your teammates are doing, that can be very hard for you, because and then if you get higher and higher off the same thing, right, then, same principles, then you'll get to, like, Platinum or Diamond, and by that point, it's like, you just can't do stuff by yourself anymore, right? Like, it just basically doesn't work anymore. And if you've just gotten by playing solo queue warrior by yourself, suddenly you're like, what the fuck, why isn't this working anymore? Fucking game is rigged and all, that's how it starts, right? So it can build in some very bad habits in you if you get, like, by on bad habits early game. It's kind of the thing where, like, each rank has, like, I've sort of lost my train of thought on this one, to be honest with you. Each rank sort of has, like, a dominant thing you need to learn to, get by in that rank, I think, and if you don't really worry about, like, expanding past that, you just kind of find the one thing that works and don't worry about anything else for you at that time, it can get very difficult for you as you start to climb up. But the short answer to the question is, yeah, that's why climbing's hard. You've got to worry about more things as you climb up, and you probably didn't have to worry about them at all at one point. And now suddenly, oh shit, I gotta keep track of, like, 9,000 different things. Especially if you play someone like Anna, right, who's got, like, a lot of things to keep track of as well by herself. So, next up was, should an Orisa back up into the corner and pop her shield? So basically, you know, classic turtle strats, just tuck in, shield down, and now I'm safe in all directions. I've built my own little personal bunker. And, you know, the bullshit answer is, it depends, you know, varies. The thing is, that kind of maneuver is a very selfish thing to do, because, it does essentially nothing to create space for your team. It's something that is purely helping you, pretty much, right? Unless you've got, like, Torbjorn and Bastion strats going on or something, right? Then I guess, but... So, like, if you're trying to contest a point, and you're basically by yourself, or your team, or your DPS are not really people that are gonna stick super close to you at the time, then, you know, that's fine. It makes it pretty safe for you, because the enemy have to, like, actually physically press into your bubble to actually get to you, right? And it can be difficult to cover all of that space, pretty much, so it can be helpful depending on the situation. But in terms of, like, creating space for your team, it does nothing. In fact, it'll often give up a lot more ground than it gains, because you're inherently, right, backing up into a corner and then making your own little bubble over there. So you're not making space for your team, you're probably giving up space for your team in reality, so it can be very detrimental depending on what's going on. So the kind of truncated answer is, generally don't, but sometimes it's the correct decision to do so, depending on the situation. Yeah, and that's kind of it. Not a terribly hard question. So, next up was... I have 20 seconds until overtime in spawn as Lucio, and my team is mostly dead or in spawn. What do? And this was a question I kind of didn't really understand the, sort of the point of it, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I get the point of it, that's not the right way to put it. The reasoning behind it, because if you're in spawn already as Lucio, and most of your team is dead or in spawn, you should wait for your teammates and then try to rush them out to the spawn with you, because you're kind of all already there, or almost there. Because obviously the basic thing is, like, there's not a lot of time left. And then we're about to go into overtime, do I just rush up to the point and contest it by myself? Or do I wait for my teammates and then try to get them out there faster? And, like, you know, again, the cheating answer is, it depends. But in reality, it's more along the lines of, like, it depends on how quickly you think you can get out there with your teammates, pretty much. Because if you got, like, 20 seconds left, and literally your whole team just died right now, they have to respawn, so it's gonna take them 10 seconds to respawn. You've only got 20 seconds, so by the time they respawn, you've got 10 seconds to get back there. Depending on the map, that might not be enough time to get back, right? Or it'll be cutting it really fucking close. So, in that kind of situation where you think you are genuinely in danger of not making it, then, yeah, you just rush out there and leave them behind, and just hope that you can stall it out by yourself. But if there's a reasonable chance you can get out there with your teammates instead, so, like, they're mostly respawned, they're all getting pretty close to respawning, you're only missing like 1 or 2 people, you know? Just wait for your teammates and try to get it back out there with more of them, because if you can speed boost 5 people out there, that's a lot better than just speed boosting yourself out there. So you just kind of have to weigh it up and go like, well, if I commit the extra little bit of time here to wait for my teammates, is that likely to cost us the game just because I won't get there in time? You know, in which case you roll the dice and just hope that you can stall it long enough by yourself. So that's the answer pretty much. Play it by ear. Can I make it back with my teammates? If so, wait. If no, or I'm not sure, or I think it's cutting it really close, then just consider going out by yourself or with whoever is there. Because going out there with more people will never be worse than going, right? Like, going with more people is always preferable to going with less people. So try to go with more people if you can, but it really will depend on just, like, the map and how much time you've got left. Next up was how to play Reaper in higher ranks. And the, so this is gonna sound like a really flippant answer. But the answer is pretty much, don't. Like, if you want to play a shotgun hero in, like, higher SRs, to be honest with you, you should probably just pick Torbjorn over, Reaper. Because here's the thing with Reaper, is he's a very feast or famine character, and more than just that, it really depends on the enemy team not really working together properly, right? Like, for Reaper to really get work done, he needs the enemy team to be kind of indifferent, split apart, not really working together, kind of like going off by themselves, not all collapsing on him, you know. He is a lot better in lower ranks because people are way less likely to do anything like that, right? Like, lower ranks, oh, what the fuck's teamwork, right? So it's a lot easier for him in that kind of situation, but as you get higher and higher, you can't count on the enemy team being bad as much, right? You just can't depend on it. So Reaper starts getting worse and worse as the enemy team gets better and better at actually working together, so we'll see how it goes after the next round of PTR buffs that Reaper's looking to get. Might make a difference to him. Like, it might make him more viable at higher SRs, but we'll see. Presently speaking, playing Reaper at higher SRs, you're pretty much gonna, like, just kinda don't, but if you're really committed to it, like, you like Reaper, more power to you, man. You try and make it work. You're pretty much gonna have a lot harder time actually playing him as a flanker, because he's just kind of too slow and lumbering for that kind of thing. He's very telegraphed. So if the enemy team are working together at all, you really can't do that kind of stuff as Reaper as well. So you'll end up playing him more as a frontline fighter, pretty much. Working more with your team, rather than spending time, like, behind the enemy team, trying to bully around their backline, because they'll just collapse on you, more decisively than that. So you're gonna have to get really creative, get, like, some coordination with your teammates, coordinate with another diver or a flanker on your team, something like that, and do a lot of praying, to be honest with you. But, pretty much we're playing more like a frontline fighter, and if you're gonna flank, you're gonna need some coordination with your teammates, or real creative thinking, and, like, real, like, chess master thinking, like, 4 stages ahead kind of thing to make it work. He's just not as good at higher ranks as he is at lower ranks, unfortunately. Next up was, how many heroes should you be able to play? And the basic answer is, I think you should play, I think the ideal number, or the most realistic number for a lot of people, is 6. And that's 2 DPS, 2 tanks, 2 healers, 1 main tank, 1 off tank, 1 main healer, 1 off healer. and then 2 DPS kind of your choice, but I think if you want to be as well-rounded as possible, you should go a flanker and a sustained DPS, so like Genji and Soldier, just for example, something like that. If that's too much for you, like you don't have the kind of time to invest in that many heroes, you just don't like that many heroes, then you could shrink it down, 1 tank, 1 healer, and just pick a main tank and a main healer, because people are more likely to filter the off role of those than the main, so that'll get you a little bit further with, or that'll get you kind of as far with less work, kind of, pretty much. The person in this question got, like, real into it and was like, should I learn how to play, like, a hit scan DPS and a projectile DPS? Should I worry about, like, they got, like, really into it. I really don't think it matters that much, to be honest with you. Like, you know, try and keep your hero pool as large as you possibly can, but realistically, you only need 2 of each, 1 main, 1 off, 1 sustained, 1 flanker, and you've got pretty much all your bases covered, right? And, you know, focus on whichever role you personally like playing the most. You like DPS, try and work on, like, more than just 2 DPS if you can, right? You like tank, try and play as many tanks as possible. You like healer, try and play as many healers as possible, right? So focus on the role you play, and then just, like, keep 2, basically, in the other ones, pretty much. Next up was, when is Primal Rage feeding versus stalling? And it's, like, really straightforward, to be honest with you. Because the thought process should pretty much go, if I use Primal Rage now, is there any chance this fight ever turns into a winning fight? Right? Like, if I use Primal Rage now just to, like, fight the 2-3 people that are here, right? Because we'll assume it's kind of like just you versus a couple of people or a few people. Like, is it realistic this fight ever turns into a winning fight? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't do it. But, you go one step further than that, you also think to yourself, if we lose this fight now, do we lose the round? If the answer is yes, we lose the round, you go all in. You don't get another chance, so you just commit as hard as you can to this fight right here, right now. But if it's not win this round or lose this round situation, is this gonna ever turn into a winning fight? Yes, no. If no, it'll never turn into a winning fight, or extremely unlikely to turn into a winning fight, don't bother. Save Primal Rage for the next fight where you have a chance of winning the fight. And if there's a chance, maybe my team gets back, maybe the composition of heroes they've got, maybe I can just kill them in Primal Rage right now, right? Maybe my teammates are going to reinforce way quicker because they died first in the team fight, something like that. We've got the spawn advantage. Bear those kinds of things in mind, and if, hey, maybe we win this fight if I drag it out a little bit longer, go for it. Otherwise, don't do it. Save resources. Unless you're going to lose the round if you don't. You don't get another chance in that situation. You just go all in. Next up was Torb gun versus hammer close range, which is mathematically better. Another extremely simple answer, because it's just the shotgun. The only reason, and I don't recommend doing this unless you are like an absolute god at timekeeping, but I will mention it just for completeness' sake. The only reason to use Torb's hammer as a DPS, like to actually hit the enemy team with, is you need to reload your gun. Because it works the same way as, like, Mercy's gun does, right? Or Mercy's pistol does, where if his gun isn't equipped at the time, then it's reloading while it's in your pocket. So if you wait the whole reload time, then switch back to Torbjorn's gun, it's reloaded. So, theoretically, you could fight until you run out of ammo, you're reloading, switch to the hammer just to be doing something while you're reloading, right? And then when the reload time is done, switch back to the gun. Now, you need to be sure that you've got that time figured out. Because if you change before you've actually finished reloading, you are gonna be very fucking sad. The replay could not be played. Well, that's inconvenient. God damn, that's a lot of replays that are no good anymore. Like, if you get, like, most of the way through reloading that gun in your pocket, then switch to the gun, you're gonna be real fucking sad, because suddenly you have to reload the gun again, right? So, you have to be real sure on your timing if you're gonna do that one. But that's the only reason to use, like, the hammer as an actual weapon. right? Is that kind of situation. Otherwise, just use the shotgun. The fucking shotgun can one-shot people at 200 health if you get, like, a real beefy shot into them, right? So, it's better. So, very simple answer. Next up was, am I just being a heal bot as Moira? Is there such a thing as too much healing? And, yeah, there is, actually. There is too much healing. Because if you're just healing constantly as Moira, not Anna, you're gonna end up running out of resource. You're just flatly not making as much use out of your kit. You're gonna be charging your ultimate slower. It's just, you're not being as efficient if you only focus on healing as Moira. The person in the question asked, like, you know, I focus pretty much entirely on healing. Is there a more, like, balanced 50-50 split or something like that? And I would describe it as being more, like, 70-30. Where you should be focusing on healing, like, 70% of the time. And then the rest of the time is spent, doing damage. Because Moira's kit is, like, incentivizes you doing damage, right? Like, if you don't need to be using the healing orb right now, and you don't have your ultimate, you should be spamming the damage orb so that you're building ult charge as efficiently as possible. You don't want your cooldown just sitting there doing nothing for an extended period of time. So you throw the damage orbs out there to help you build up your ult charge as much as possible. If you don't need to actively be healing somebody right now, you should just kind of be trying to give the enemy team the suck instead. You know, put the regen on your teammates, and then while the regen's ticking, start trying to do some damage to the enemy team, because you're adding damage to their team, you're building ult charge, and you're being more resource efficient. So, yeah, you should be doing more damage. The thing is, you shouldn't just be healing as Moira. The thing is, the Moira players get it beat into their heads. You're a healer, you're not a DPS, and you're the one that's gonna get blamed if stuff starts going wrong, right? Because your teammates start looking for shit to blame. And they look and they go, we're dying, right? We got a Moira on our team. Well, obviously the Moira just isn't healing people, right? Or they saw you sucking someone once, right? Because, like, you were out of resource and you're trying to build resource so you can actually heal someone. But they just saw you healing. They saw you sucking someone when someone needed healing. They don't know the context behind your choice. So they go, Moira's just DPSing, right? So you're super likely to get blamed for it wrongly. And, like, if you go, like, Reddit, they're like, Moira's a healer. Moira's a healer. No damage. Damage bad. No, do damage, dude. Do as much damage as you physically can. If you don't need to be healing someone, be doing damage to those boys. Now, Moira does still do a lot of healing, and the person in the post commented they found it kind of weird when people get, like, 10k healing as Moira, and then they're kind of proud of that number. Because they felt it's super easy to get, like, 15 to 20k. And, yeah, it is. My average healing on Moira is something like 18k. And then, like, the highest I've ever done was something absurd, like 34k in one game or something like that. Moira does, like, a lot of healing, especially if assuming the game isn't, like, a 2-minute stomp one way or the other, right? So Moira does put out some really big healing numbers. But you want to, like, do as much damage as you possibly can. And that's true of everyone. You're playing Anna, you want to do as much damage as you can, right? Like, if you're playing Mercy, you want to use the damage boost as much as you can. If you're playing Lucio, you want to be in the speed aura as much as you can. Like, you don't want to just be sitting there healing someone, right? You want to be contributing as much to the team as possible, and that'll mean finding opportunities to do damage when you don't need to be healing people. You're just making more efficient use of your time if you look for chances to do damage rather than sitting around waiting for someone to need healing, pretty much. So there you go. And then next up was... And is this actually the last question I had? I thought I had more than this. Oh no, I missed one up there. So this is the second to last question. That's right, okay. So next up was, why is Torb considered a throw pick? And it's... The short answer is it's really hard to change somebody's opinion once it's already been made, right? Torbjorn has a reputation at this point for being the throw hero, pretty much, because he was real bad for a very long period of time, and some would argue he is still quite bad, you know, opinion will depend. I think he's mostly fine at this point, but you know, that was the way for a long time. He was really bad. And he's just also like, if someone on your team is like, I'm throwing now, who do they pick 9 times out of 10? They pick Torbjorn, don't they? Right? Like, it's the hero we associate with, like, the throw pick, sadly. And it is really hard to change the perception of a character after it's already been formed in the community, right? Sombra has been pigeonholed into a similar position. She's sort of gotten a little bit of distance now. People don't just see Sombra and immediately assume the person is throwing, though they still do go, ugh, the Sombra, right? Junkrat managed to get away from it, Hanzo managed to get away with it. Orisa, like, got real fucked over reputation-wise early on, because it took a little bit of time to figure out how to play Orisa, pretty much, right? She got a few changes which helped out, but it pretty much just took people some time to figure out how to play Orisa properly. And people were like, why pick Orisa? She's just worse Reinhardt. And then the jury flipped on that at one point, didn't they? Where they said the exact inverse of that. So Orisa managed to get away from it, but it is really hard to change public perception after it's been made. So that's kind of the issue with Torbjorn. The other thing is, it's that Torbjorn, the people that play Torbjorn do nothing to help his image, right? The same way that people that pick Widowmaker, the people who pick Genji, the people who pick Bastion, they do nothing to help the perception of that character. Because these are always the players that are the most selfish, pretty much, right? Like, they are the ones that are most likely to pick their hero and never change if something goes wrong. And they're the heroes that are like, something's pretty likely to go wrong, right? Like, Torbjorn's got some pretty, like, solid counters, right? Widowmaker, things can go real bad as Widowmaker. You can just have a bad game as Widowmaker. Same with Genji. Bastion works real well if things work, but, like, your team needs to play around you. You pick Bastion, you're like forcing people to play around you. And then if it doesn't work out, they always stay on Bastion. So the people that play these heroes, they do them no favors. Torbjorn's a similar situation to Bastion, where your teammates need to play around you to at least some extent as Torbjorn, right? It's very hard for Torbjorn to get stuff done by himself. So again, you're kind of forcing people to do stuff, and they didn't necessarily sign up to do, right? So that already kind of upsets people. And then, if you act like an asshole, or things go badly and you don't switch, that just reinforces their image of that character. And Torbjorn players do that shit so much, right? They are such selfish assholes 9 times out of 10. Like, it does nothing to help the guy. It does nothing to help Torbjorn's image when you go around acting like that. And people do it. They do it, though. Same with Bastion, Widowmaker, all of them. And they get so defensive as well. They get so angry. Oh, God. I just had real bad flashbacks to the exact moment that happened to me. And I was like, Jesus Christ, just down heavy, you scrub. Broly players love that one now. They love the stomp now that it's an overhead. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so, like, they get so defensive as well. Like, as soon as you say anything to the Torbjorn player, they immediately go on the defense. They're like, oh, I just want to have fun, you fucking tryhard, or something to that effect. Torbjorn's fine, it's not the problem. Moira's playing a DPS over there instead of healing, you know. That's always their response to even just a simple, hey Torb, can you change to something else please? It's not really working. And they immediately come out, just guns blazing on him. Like, so, you know, that's the issue. I think Torbjorn's fine. Again, he is still, like, can be easily countered, so if you play Torbjorn, you should be, like, open to switching if things go badly. But, it's hard to change opinion. It's hard to change your reputation once you already have one, right? It's hard to change that, so... And then the Torbjorn players themselves do nothing to help his image. So that's the problem with Torbjorn, pretty much. That's why he's considered a throw pick. I do think he's fine now. I think you can pick Torbjorn. Again, he is countered pretty solidly by a few things. The fuck was he doing? Just hoping I pushed a button, I guess. Yeah, so that's why, pretty much. I do think he's fine. I think you can play him. He is countered pretty solidly by some stuff, but he's pretty much fine now. You can play Torbjorn, and it's fine. I even just recommended playing him over Reaper in higher SRs a second ago, right? Because he's just got more going for him than Reaper does, to be honest with you. He's got more he can work with. Anyway, so the last question we have now is, at what point should I follow the meta? And I'm actually gonna stop for a second, because I know I've forgotten to write context for this one down, so I'm gonna go back and look at it a second. Okay, yeah, I knew I was missing something. So the full post is only a one paragraph, said, some of the tier lists I've seen vary a lot in terms of hero placement. People in my competitive games seem to get very angry whenever I play, say, Sombra. Am I gimping myself playing lower tier characters, or is it irrelevant for the most part? I've seen some YouTubers say it doesn't matter at all, but that differs a lot from what I hear in my games. So the thing is that it doesn't really matter that much outside of extremely high SR. The people in your game will always say different, though, because they have a vested interest in winning that game at that moment in time. And they would much rather that you pick something that they perceive as having a higher chance of winning, right? So they will always say, in the game, you should pick a more meta hero, because they think that increases their chances of winning. So they will say that. The thing is that it doesn't really matter, because unless you're in very high SRs, every hero is, like, roughly equivalent to each other, to be honest with you. Like, yeah, some heroes have drawbacks, and bigger drawbacks. Like, some heroes, they've got a lot of drawbacks to them, like say, Bastion, you know? They've got drawbacks to them. So, it makes it harder to work with that hero, and it makes it harder for you to play that hero, because you have less strengths than the more meta heroes do, right? Like, if we want to talk about really meta heroes, we say, hey, Anna is, like, pretty fucking top tier, right? Because she's just got way massive strengths. Like, Anna, in terms of strengths and weaknesses, her strengths are, like, up here, her weaknesses are, like, down here, right? Like, she's got a lot going for her, and she doesn't have a lot working against her. She's good in most situations. There's very few situations she's bad in. And even the situations she's bad in, she has workarounds for, right? So, she's a pretty, like, consistent... She's, like, a pretty archetypical, like, mid-tier to upper-tier character. Lot of strengths, few drawbacks, has workarounds, rarely bad, right? But, like... just because they're the more meta hero doesn't mean you know how to play the guy, right? Like, you know, I say, okay, so I say, hey, you know, I don't really like Soldier. I think McCree is a more meta pick. You might have no fucking clue how to play McCree, though, right? Like, you might be the best soldier in the player in the world. You don't have a fucking clue how to play McCree. So you shouldn't play McCree. You should just pick Soldier. But Soldier's the more meta pick. Yeah. But you're better at Soldier, so you should pick Soldier. Skill with hero is greater than anything else, right? Right, even if, like, what you're picking is, like, bad team comp-wise, right? Like, say, for example, you've got 2 DPS, 2 healers, 1 tank, the tank's Reinhardt, right? You don't actually know how to play the optimal picks to go with Reinhardt, right? Like, you don't know how to play Zarya, who is pretty much the go-to play with Zarya champion, right? That hero, sorry. League of Legends. You don't know how to play Zarya. Don't pick Zarya, okay? Like, try and work with it as much as you can. Like, try and pick, like, you know, Diva would be, like, the next closest after that for sticking off tanks. You don't know how to play either of the off tanks. You focused on playing, you didn't focus on picking, like, 2 for each class, right? So you only know how to play 1 tank, and it happens to be an off tank, right? You know how to play Winston. So pick Winston instead. Don't pick any of the off tanks. Winston is not as optimal as if you picked Zarya, right, or Diva, but you don't know how to play those characters, so you should just play the character you do know how to play, even though it's a little bit worse composition-wise. Doesn't matter. It might be stronger composition-wise, but you don't know how to play the stronger composition hero. So there's no point you picking it. You won't be able to leverage why it's stronger anyway, because you don't know how to play it. So just pick the less optimal one. Or let's say, hey, you only know how to pick Reinhardt, and they just picked Reinhardt. You don't know how to play another tank? Maybe just don't pick another tank, to be honest with you, dude. Try and work with it as much as possible. Maybe then go, alright, I don't know how to play any of the other tanks, but I know how to play Bridget. So I'll pick Bridget instead, because she's kind of in between the two roles, right? Like, it's again, less optimal composition-wise, but it's working more with your knowledge, and that'll be better than picking something you don't know how to play because it fixed the comp. And maybe you go, hey, I don't know how to play any of the, like, sort of compromise picks. Honestly, just pick that third DPS. Just say, like, dude, I only know how to play Reinhardt and you're playing Reinhardt, so switch with me, or, like, to be honest, I'll just be dead weight. So, like, I can play Reinhardt, switch with me if you want, like, if you can play a different one, and I'll play Reinhardt, right? Like, try and work with it, with the team. Say, I just don't know how to play the others, dude. I'll be dead weight. I know I should pick Zarya. I don't know how to play Zarya, dude. If you do, I'll play Rein instead, because he's the one I know how to play. And try to work it out like that. And if you can work it out like that, real talk, just pick the third DPS. There's no point you picking a hero you don't know how to play. There's no point doing that, because you won't, even if it's the correct decision, if you don't know how to play him, you won't be able to take advantage of why it's the correct decision. So there's no point you doing it. So yeah, like, anyway, I got a little bit of off track from the original question. Like, you play the hero you want to play, because the tier lists are not the end of the world. Yeah, there's tier lists. You know, anybody that tries to tell you there isn't a tier list for Overwatch is a dirty liar. And you are free to call them as such, because that's what they are. But, it's not the be-all and end-all. It starts mattering more and more as you get higher in rank, but, like, even then, there are Grandmaster Torbjorn players. Like, there are Grandmaster, Master-level Torbjorn one-trick players, right? Like, you can still do it. You can still do it. You just need to be able to do it well at that point, right? So, it's not the be-all and end-all. Matters more at higher SR. Even then, it still isn't the end of the world. So, don't worry about the tier list and the meta too much, dude. You play what you want to play. Don't worry about the people in the game with you. They have a vested interest in winning that game. So, they will always say to do the thing they think will increase your chances of winning. But they don't necessarily know you, right? They don't know if the meta is any good for you. You don't know how to play the meta heroes? Don't worry about it, dude. It doesn't matter as much as fucking X69 Pussy Destroyer 69X, right? Like, they don't... That guy's opinion doesn't really matter, and you won't see that guy ever again. So, don't worry about it. So, now we'll just wait for this game to finish. Doesn't look like it has too much left to go. Does this kill me? That doesn't kill me. Did I... Oh, no, it did kill me. Damn. I still had a bit of time to go as well. Damn, I thought I was going to live through that 100%. Damn. See, I don't even remember what happened. I played the game like 2 days ago. Don't even remember. So, hey, look at that. It mostly lined up with when we finished the questions. How about that? Didn't have to fill space for like another 2 minutes. Great times, great times. So thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just should post with us. I started streaming on Twitch Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 7 p.m. EST. Till 10 or 11 EST, depending on how things go, usually 11. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.